You are now joining Children of the Watch, a Star Wars show. I am Alex Maxwell, and we are here to talk about The Bad Batch. It's been 2 weeks since we've talked about it, and now we're back to talk about all three episodes that we've missed. That would be Bounties Lost, Common Ground, and Devil's Deal. And I cannot wait to talk about these three episodes because there's so much that's going on with it, especially Bounties Lost and this last one, Devil's Deal. I'm super excited about those episodes. And I'm super excited about who's joining me today to talk about it with. And joining me is Jonah Marie Macias. Jonah Marie, how you doing?
I'm good. I'm excited. I'm excited to talk about Bad Batch. It's always fun to talk with friends about Star Wars.
Always. And also joining us is Rik Villanueva, Cad Bane himself. What's up, Rick? How you doing?
I'm still riding that high from 3 weeks ago when he showed up. So Nobody's going to bring me down from that. Nobody's going to bring you down. All right. So we're not going to waste any time. We're going to just jump into episode 9. And now we're not going to be talking about all three of these episodes scene by scene like we normally do, like we're known for over here on Children of the Watch. We're going to talk about this more generally. We're just going to talk about some things that really stood out to all three of us. We're also going to talk about our favorite part and then some questions that we have and maybe some connections that we think could be related to The Mandalorian, the Book of Boba Fett for sure with Bounties Lost. There's some things that maybe we should probably theorize and talk about there. And then that's kind of how we're going to do it. Okay. So if you haven't watched these episodes, I don't know why you're watching this or listening to it. So go watch those episodes and then come back and join us for this discussion. And I have to leave. I have to leave and go watch them and come back.
Okay. See you, Rick. Already in the chat, we've got a comment about Hauser's hair. And I mean, he's a pretty cool clone. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah. I know the hot Hauser hashtag has launched on social media.
I mean, it's true. I mean, I think we all thought that when we saw Hauser. It's like, oh man, that is the most attractive clone I think I've ever seen. He's got that cool scar, the cool like hair. He looks like he's a Premier League soccer player or something.
Yes, the undercut really gives off those vibes. Yeah.
It really does. It really does. All right, so let's start with episode 9, which is Bounties Lost. And this was a fantastic episode. This was directed by Brad Rao and Nathaniel Villanueva, and the writer was Matt Mitchin. I don't want to say his last name wrong.
McNivitz?
Thank you. I freeze up sometimes on names because I'm so afraid of like saying them wrong. And then I end up saying them wrong. So thank you, Jonah Marie. Okay. What are some things that stood out to you guys in episode 9, Bounties Lost?
Fennec Shand is a beast. There's just, I sat there watching this episode, the high from the episode previous, seeing, Cad Bane just come in ultra smooth, one shot, raspy voice, you're coming with me, little lady kind of thing. And then in this one, just beast mode Fennec Shand and intelligent fighting. It wasn't just, bare knuckles or, tech versus tech. It was some intelligent fighting on both hands. I had a little talk with Alex Damon about this, and he kind of set my nerves at ease about this fight. We can talk about this a little bit later on, but I mean, it was, I was like, how is she doing it? He fought a couple of Jedi. She can't do that. And then she did. And I was like, oh, damn. Fennec's no joke.
She is no joke.
So, yeah.
Jonah Marie, what stood out to you in this episode?
What stood out to me was the abandoned facility, Boravio itself, and why was it abandoned? And all these other questions about Lamasu's intentions just kept coming up. And I thought, oh, yay, I hope we get more answers. So here's hoping within the next couple of episodes, we go back to Omega, because I definitely want to learn more about what it is that they have planned for her, besides taking her genetic material, but outside of that.
Right. So like this episode was just so cool in the sense of, I mean, like Rick said, we get more Cad Bane in this episode. His ship is awesome, by the way. I think Din, when he goes shopping for a new starship because of the Razor Crest, RIP Razor Crest, I think he should like invest in a ship like that because it's so cool. But it's cool to see Cad Bane back. I love those scenes in that episode of Omega talking to what's his name? Is it Toto? Is that his name?
Toto, yeah.
I just love the way she kind of outsmarted him in the sense of kind of getting out. I feel like she was genuine and wanting to help him, but she also took that to her advantage, which we kind of see in Common Ground. We learn that, she is a strategist. She does know what she's doing. And this isn't like, I guess an easy comparison sometimes for me for Omega is Ezra, because they're kind of in that same stage of life. They're kind of experiencing the same sort of things in both of their journeys. Whereas Ezra, especially towards the beginning, things just kind of happen to him almost by will of the Force. You can kind of say of like, he just kind of like stumbling into things, sometimes literally stumbling into things. Omega is like purposely doing things that it's like, oh, wow, she is on top of it. Like she knows what she's doing for sure. Now, I'm not saying that that's a bad thing with Ezra. I think he kind of grows into that, especially by the finale. But it's really cool to see Omega where she's at right now from the beginning and just thinking, okay, if they take this character further, what kind of power is she going to be in the galaxy? Because she could be if she wanted to, in my opinion, just the way that she operates.
That whole scene with her and Toto 361, because 360 he did. She came off very Kaminoan in that scene. It was ultra calm.
Yep.
We're here to help you. And like behind the scenes, she's tinkering with the back of his head until like, oh, like you're out. And then now I'm going to just go and do my thing. So like, it was cool to see like that side of her upbringing come out where, what does she know of being a clone except for, being raised by Nala Se?
Yeah, that's a good point.
And speaking of her upbringing, it was just so interesting to see how it doesn't look like she believes she's property because of the way Nala Se raised her. And I liked her interactions with Toto because Cad Bane treats Toto as an assistant and, he doesn't help him or do anything for him. And on the contrary, Omega is someone who was cared for by Nala Se. And it was just a great comparison between those two characters.
Yeah, definitely. And so it seems like, I guess we learned in this episode that there's really two competing forces of Kaminoans that want Omega. And Fennec Shand is working for one side, Cad Bane's working for the other. And it's kind of interesting to me. Like you said, Rik, it's interesting to see Fennec Shand in this stage of her life where she doesn't have a lot of experience, but man, she is awesome already. She's doing things that we see her do later in The Mandalorian. And hopefully, I can't wait to see what she's going to do in the book of Boba Fett, because thinking through, okay, there's a major connection now. I mean, there would have been no matter what, but like it's heightened because we learn in this episode, Boba Fett's name from the Kaminoans is Alpha, right? So that's the beginning of the Greek alphabet, and Omega is the last, right? So it's like they're both pure, unaltered clones. It's just interesting. I mean, in a way, like Omega truly is like Boba Fett's sister. Even though, like, I don't know if Boba Fett knows about her at all. That's something, I don't know. It's just really interesting to think about, especially as we're 6 months away from the book of Boba Fett premiering, which is crazy.
Yeah, at this stage, when you want to set comparisons, like we just said about her upbringing with the Kaminoans, I mean, Boba learned everything from Jango.
Yeah.
He learned, how to fight, how to hunt. To an extent, there was a code to the way that they did things before Jango died. But you get Omega's almost more. She's almost more of a nurturer because she was somewhat cared for. We know that some things have happened, or she says in episode 1 or 2 that she doesn't like being on the tables either, like the other clones were. So something happened to her along the way that we don't know yet. But like that's that stark difference, the yin and yang of Jango. Really, yeah, I was gonna say of just Boba and her, but I mean of Jango too, because here he was this hired killer, but he also wanted to be a parent. So much so that he asked for this unaltered clone. It's not like that Kaminoans just said, we're making one, you can have it. He asked for Boba.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I don't think he asked for Omega. So they definitely did that probably after his passing.
Yeah, it almost seems like, in a way, it's like, hey, that was a really interesting idea Jango had to make an unaltered clone like that. We should do it too, but for their own purposes. So I'm curious to see where that leads. I'm curious to see if Omega is a factor at all going forward in live action stuff or animation. We're absolutely not at a point yet where we can make that determination. But I would not foresee anything tragic happening to Omega by the end of this series. I would hope not. Jonah
Actually, I just come to think of it the way that I said that.
Yeah.
I just I need to remember the timeline for Attack of the Clones, because Anakin is an adult at that point in time. So Omega would technically be around at that point in time.
The thing. If she's unaltered, she is.
Yeah.
She would be younger. She seems younger than Boba Fett, right? Like a few years younger at least. But she might be around.
You guys are gonna have to do another rewatch of Attack of the Clones with the magnifying glass. Wait for the little blonde one, running around back there.
Hey, that might help my YouTube views if I put like a red circle with an arrow saying Omega ? In Attack of the Clones or something.
Just at a random blurry spot in the corner.
Exactly. Man, that's interesting to think about. Because she could have been hidden from them. I mean, she I don't know if they've interacted or not. Now, I also thought about too, it seems like that planet that they go to, I forgot the name of it. Jonah Marie, you said it earlier. What was that planet they went to?
Boravio.
Okay, so is that like a Kaminoan black site? Is that where they were doing like cloning that was like under the radar, they didn't want people to know about? Or is that like a site that they just kind of abandoned? It kind of gave me like some Jurassic Park vibes at times.
Yeah, that's exactly what came to my mind. Like Site B, Isla Sorna was their factory floor, whereas Isla Nublar was their park. So yeah, I got the feeling that it was their version of a Site B. And I also thought maybe this is where they perfected the process and thought about taking the business back home to Camino. So that's also a possibility. Or maybe this is where they were doing some very strange things that could possibly be connected to Grogu or Snoke or even Sidious. So who knows?
So cloning right now for Star Wars is like the multiverse for Marvel. Like cloning is just in right now for Star Wars, and I'm all about it. Yeah, it's interesting, that place. I saw a lot of people talking about basically the alien that fell onto Fennec Shand in that moment, and of course I saw a lot of people theorizing, is that a Snoke species or something? But I kind of thought, like, just from my observation, and I haven't looked too much into this, but it kind of looked like there were different species in those vats. Like it wasn't just one species.
Yeah, there was a Celestian in one.
Yeah.
And the one that fell on Omega looked a lot like a Kaminoan, just a younger version because the neck wasn't too long.
Yep.
So that's what I thought at the time.
I kind of thought... Yeah, go ahead, Rick.
I'm sorry. The Monday afterwards, when they released all of the like the concept art and the behind the scenes stuff on StarWars.com, there was a sketch of all of the other things that were in the vats, and no two of them were the same.
Interesting.
So, and going back to what Boravio may be, I was almost thinking, and I was like, a place where the Kaminoans might have started cloning. It was in like an older facility.
Yeah.
And shout out to the real MVP of this episode, the Fog. It was like, which by the way, like the animation of the Fog and utilizing it in the way that they did to aid in the way that Cad Bane and Fennec were fighting, along with Omega being able to hide, and all of the atmosphere all together with her riding Toto down to the platform and stuff like that, was all the atmospherics of this episode were really cool. But Borovio, like I said, it just seemed like like this anchor point to where the Kaminoans had almost like built a name for themselves, but abandoned it for a better facility somewhere more clandestine on this, on Camino, that, they could do what they needed to do, without any kind of scrutiny. Because I think about it, they're literally, Borovio's above the clouds, that's kind of wide out in the open, except for the fog that's, in the facility. But then Camino, like they're right on the surface of the water, and it's raining all the time. So they can kind of hide underneath that.
I kind of like when I rewatched it in the alien that fell onto Fennec Shand, for some reason I was thinking, it's like, what if that was originally what Kaminoans look like, and they just genetically changed themselves over time, like perfecting almost themselves, because that's something Kaminoans would do. And now it's like they're not even the same, like they don't even look the same as they used to. I don't know. That was a weird thought that popped into my mind.
No, yeah, I saw a lot of people thinking that maybe that's how they maybe they don't have a way to reproduce, and maybe they just clone themselves as a species.
That would make sense.
Or maybe what was in the vat was like an older, like a donor, and then they took cells from Yariel Poof with his giant long neck, and they splice some genes, and Yariel Poof and like ancient Kaminoans are the new Kaminoans that we know now.
That's it.
So, I just solved it. I solved it right there.
You figured it out.
You guys can credit me on Twitter. Good night, guys. I'm out.
You got it.
Poof, Kaminoans. There you go.
Okay, so what was your favorite part of this entire episode? I'll start. I thought the fact that Fennec Shand just absolutely owned Cad Bane in that fight was my favorite part, because it made me realize, wait a second, if Fennec beat Cad and Toro beat Fennec, therefore Toro beats Cad Bane. That's how logic works. So like that was my favorite part, I think, of the episode.
I used to like this show. And I was saying earlier, I on Jam Transmissions, the last episode, I had to sit down with Alex Damon from Star Wars Explained, and we were talking about just that, why Fennec Shand seemed to be not that she was evenly matched, but she almost seemed stronger than Cad Bane at some points. And not in the way that like, you're ruining my Cad Bane, blah, 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 like you made him weaker or something, nothing like that. But he was like, well, look at it this way. He's a little bit older. It's granted, it's only been a couple of years since the beginning of the Clone Wars, but at some point he got shot in the head. He's not on his A game anymore. So he was like, kind of, maybe think about it a little bit that way, that maybe he's just not as quick on his feet as he has been.
Look at you trying to defend Cad Bane right now.
Not as an excuse, but that just, if you want to put the real world logic to what's on the screen, the evidence that's there, I was like, okay, for myself, I was like, okay, I can accept that. And everybody knows that Toro Calican, he belongs in the trash. So there you go. That's canon.
One of the things that I was curious about while watching that fight was Fennec's origin story, because it just made me want to know more about how she got into this game. How does she know the things that she knows? Who trained her? And so one of the opportunities I had recently was talking with Ming-Na Wen at a press conference, a roundtable press conference. And so I asked her that question. Unfortunately, she couldn't answer that question because she said that she had talked with Dave Filoni and the creators of the Bad Batch about what ideas they could put together for her origin story. And so she couldn't say much about it, but it's really great to know that she was involved in that aspect of her story as well. And not necessarily just the way that the character looks, but she also was a huge part in that.
That's interesting. That makes me like I would love if they just like made an animated movie about a character, just like a one-off thing. Like imagine just a Fennec Shand animated movie, like in the style of The Bad Batch or Clone Wars or something, that gives us her origin story, and it's like a 2-hour movie. How awesome would that be?
That would be cool. Or imagine if following the book of Boba Fett, it's the book of Fennec Shand.
Even better.
Yeah.
Even better.
I want to ask this question about Fennec Shand because at this point she's a bounty hunter. She's out there. She's trying to make money doing this thing. In season 1 of The Mandalorian, Toro Calican, feelings aside about what we feel about that guy, he doesn't call her a bounty hunter. He calls her an assassin.
Ooh, that's true.
So at some point, there's a little bit of a shift in her identity as far as what she's doing. We know she's plenty capable. I mean, we see her do some things in season 2 of The Mandalorian, but when Boba Fett is introduced in the Robert Rodriguez episode, she's up on the hilltop kind of as a sniper.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering what it was that, got her from this, kind of Beskar stomping bounty hunter to somebody who's, become this crack shot.
That's interesting.
Oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
Oh no! And then what was it that made her a target? Like, what made her be a bounty? That they were seeking her out because she had done something and was placed on a wanted list. And so maybe she did something that she wasn't supposed to, like maybe helping someone, because we see that she has that potential in her, that, honor among thieves, and maybe she has a moral compass to her.
Yeah, like I get this, even in these episodes, you can feel the moral compass from her. Like you feel like she kind of wants to be good, right? Like especially with Omega, the way that she interacts with Omega, I get the sense that she's like kind of looking out for her a little bit, but like when we do meet her in season 1, it's like that's gone. But then she develops it again in season 2 of The Mandalorian as she's kind of doing this for Grogu. So maybe she has a soft spot for adorable children. I mean, who doesn't? But maybe she kind of lost her way between whatever happens in The Bad Batch to season 1 of The Mandalorian, and like Rik said, becomes kind of an assassin for hire, maybe for the Empire or the Hutts. All right.
I'm not going to say that I was the one who put the bounty out on her or anything like that, because it's Cad Bane, guys. You don't mess with Cad Bane.
You don't.
I told you what my feelings were last time. Dave Filoni's got a lawsuit coming, pending whenever Cad Bane dies. So
even if it's not him, you're just going to blame him?
I don't care who it is.
Okay. All right.
Somebody else could come in and John and Marie could write the letter right now and say, like, this is you writing a letter. Just kill Cad Bane. I don't like him anymore. And I'm going to say, Dave Filoni, you coward. I can't believe you. I'm suing you for all your hats.
Oh, that's good. Okay, so what are some questions that you guys have coming out of Bounties Lost? What are like some major? I feel like we kind of talked about a lot of this already, but is there any questions that kind of just linger for you guys coming out of that episode?
What is Lama Su's contingency plan? Okay. I need to know.
I was just going to say that I want to know what's going on deep down with the Kaminoans, that you've got Lama Su and Nala Se pitted against each other. R.I.P. Tanwi. He's, dead. Tanwi's dead. And, there's so many things that are lingering behind the surface of this series that personally, I'm just like, I need that on the screen. I need to know. I'm cool with the fact that they're leaving it, kind of as a mystery for now, because who knows how long the show is going to go. But yeah, I would get whatever that, that little struggle, that strife is going on with the Kaminoans. Like, I need to know what's going on there, because that's very intriguing.
Yeah, I think that is the biggest thing coming out of that episode. And again, I think it all goes back to who's Omega and what was she created for. And that's a very Star Wars-y thing of, kind of like Rey in a sense, like, or Rey's dad, I guess. They are created for different purposes, right? And they rejected that and maybe are choosing a new life. And that's a very Star Warsy thing. So, yes, I think we will find out very soon the answers to these questions. Now let's move on to episode 10, Common Ground. The director was Saul Ruiz and the writer was Gursimran Sandhu. And I love this episode. I know a lot of other people kind of thought maybe it was a little slow or something like that. I thought this episode was fantastic. We start off on Raxus, which used to be the capital of the Separatist Alliance. And we see basically their senator is being forced to like say thank you to the Empire for providing peace and comfort to us. And he just flat out refuses to do it. And he has the best droid in the world who will go and hire the Bad Batch to save him.
What you stop right there? You're talking about the same series that introduced us to Clink?
What? I don't know. What is it? GS8. GS8. She's pretty cool.
Oh yeah, no. I'm not denying that, but give me the GS8 Clink spinoff series.
Okay. I would watch that. A new droids.
Yeah.
So what are some things that stood out to you guys in this episode as the Bad Batch go and rescue this former senator of the Separatists, and kind of like have to deal with, wait a second, we used to be part of the Republic and we're saving a Separatist senator. What are some things that stood out with you guys? We'll start with you, Joan Marie.
Yeah, I was glad that they were exposed to a separatist who is a real separatist and not someone like Dooku or Grievous, who were in it for Sidious's plans. And so this is a separatist who was truly someone like Mina Bonteri from Star Wars: The Clone Wars. And it was great to see that kind of person again. And GS8, like you said, is just amazing. And I really do love her. And I think she's best friends with, her designation. L3. That's right. Yeah. I like to think they're best friends.
Actually, that would make a lot of sense. This two together.
Hashtag flea batch.
Yeah.
Rik, what are some things that stood out to you in this episode?
Like the thematic elements of this show, of this episode, and the one following too, that we'll get into in a minute. But for me, this whole series has been about identity and adjusting into a new galaxy and reshaping your identity to fit where you feel you might belong. When you're conscripted into this one thing, everything changes. This episode turned everything on its head with them having to rescue and care for a separatist. And on the surface for this, seeing Avi Singh look the way that he did, because in my mind, he looked very much like the prototypical like colonist, you know what I mean? Like if you think of just like historically, the European man going into Africa, and it's like that's kind of what I thought. He had the mustache. Like, yeah, that's kind of what I thought. Here's this guy who looks like this prototypical colonist having to be pulled out and rescued by the people who in the clones who were basically overtaken by the Empire, and they're being done away with. So there was that very heavy thematic of like, who's rescuing who in this situation where this person was in a position of power, obviously voluntarily, put himself in harm's way by, stepping up against what Bragg was doing, what the Empire was doing. But to have him then help along with the plan and say, hey, listen, drive this thing over there. Drive this big puppy over there. There's a hole in the wall. You guys can blast. It'll get us out of here. We have to trust each other. And you can see it in the episode that Hunter is really struggling with this, like, what are we doing? Really all of them are like, records. They're all like, we're going to help this guy. We were fighting them, 9 hours ago. Why, what are we doing helping this guy now? He doesn't have our best interest in heart. But so like you just said that really heavy thematic element for this episode was what resonated with me. So,
yeah, I think, I don't know. I just love, for me, I never thought we would get this, but I love just seeing the transition from Republic to Empire and how quick that can be. And I just love, especially with this episode and the next one, it's like you see a separatist world being taken over by the Empire, what that's like for the people. And then you see a Republic world being taken over by the Empire, and it's almost the same thing. It's the same sort of thing happening. It doesn't really matter what happened before in the Clone Wars, and it's like you said, I think you hit the nail on the head there, Rik. This show's about identity, right? I mean, we even talked about it with Omega. She's trying to figure out who she is. And people are, they have plans for her. They have an idea of who she is, but she gets a say in who she is. And so I do love that theme, in this show. And I think it stands out quite a bit. I think we're going to move on to favorite part of this episode. My favorite part was any part GS8 was like just commenting on how awesome the Bad Batch, like, oh wow, like she was just like so impressed with how they did things. It's almost like she was like, I kind of want to do this, like you got that sense she kind of enjoyed doing all this with them. What are some of your favorite parts, Rik? We'll start with you.
Favorite single shot from this episode is, I don't remember which clone it is that slides. And he's shooting off the stunt Hunter. Yeah, he's sliding, is blasting off those stun shots at the same time. I was like, come on now. I'm a kid of the 80s. You can't ask for a better like action hero moment than like, it reminded me of like a Hot Fuzz, like have you ever, what does he say? Like, have you ever run shooting a gun in the air or shooting two guns in the air, whatever, I'm just like, I was so cool. And it's only a couple of seconds of the episode. I was like, it's awesome.
It is awesome. Jonah Marie, what was your favorite part of the episode?
It was sort of minor, but it's when Avi Singh takes the vase from GS8 and tosses it at the troopers. And then Tech and Echo are able to see that this guy is willing to get his hands dirty. But I love when he says, I never liked that vase anyway.
Yeah, it was pretty good. Okay, so now, in terms of like big questions, I don't know if this episode produces any big questions, but we'll ask what are some questions that maybe we have coming out of this episode and going forward in the Star Wars universe. I think for me, it is just more, okay, so like this whole process of taking over the Empire, or the Empire taking over the galaxy, it makes sense to see how like people are just like, okay, I guess this is what we're doing now, and just going with it. I love when Avi Singh's like, no, this is wrong, and he wants to stay on the planet, and they basically convince him like, hey, no, you can't stay. You need to come and fight another day. By the way, I don't know if any of you guys saw this, and this would be a very, I guess, Star Wars-y thing that they would do, but Avi Singh looks frighteningly similar to a person standing in the Yavin throne room in A New Hope.
Yeah, Bob Hudson.
Yeah. Is that what did you say that earlier?
No.
Okay.
Okay. That's his name. No. The guy with the lamest name in all of Star Wars, Bob.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's Bob right there.
Yeah, but I mean,
but it's not. But
they've done that before. They've done that with Rex. We'll see. Yeah. So, okay, what are some questions that you have, Jonah Marie?
Yeah, I do love that Echo was the one to voice his opinions the most about like how, he doesn't feel comfortable helping a separatist, especially given what happened to him in Star Wars: The Clone Wars, being taken by the Techno Union. So one of my questions was, well, it wasn't really a question, but I really wish we could have seen more of him processing and coming to the realization that maybe what we've been fighting for is wrong. Maybe we've been seeing it the wrong way this entire time. And I wish we could have seen a little bit more of that afterward. But yeah, that's what I came away with after watching that episode.
Echo does kind of feel like the least developed of the Bad Batch to me. In my opinion, he just doesn't, I don't know.
Yeah. I do wish that he had a more of a focus, especially in relation to Omega. But I do like how he's been questioning Hunter as well. Like, we're soldiers. What are we doing? We're not mercenaries. In that episode, Battle Scars. So I hope they come back around to that, because it does pose a very interesting tension between Hunter and Echo that could possibly lead Echo to leave if he wanted to join with Rex's cause and whatever he's doing on his side. So that would be an interesting dynamic to see.
Hashtag clone rebellion.
Yeah.
I'm so about that. Rik, do you have any questions coming out of this episode, Common Ground?
I've got one kind of really big one. And I'm wondering if this event on Raxus kind of ripples out and it becomes known on some of the other separatist worlds. And that's where we start to see these other little seeds of rebellion kind of spark up. This is where you get, people like Cassian and their family involved as like, we used to be separatists because of this event. People started hearing about it. And that's the thing that says like, oh my God, like something's not right. Like that was the capital of our movement. And we need to be the ones to do something. The Empire's tightening their grip on all of these other worlds, and you have these other, be they ruling families or systems of government or whatever they have, or what have you, that could be the spark for them to say like, no, we need to start fighting back now, and doing something a little bit more drastic. So I'm not saying there's going to be a flashback of this in live action in the Andor series. Get Alexander Siddig to put on a suit and the thing, just pop him in there.
And the monocle.
Yeah, that's right. Now, was the monocle attached to the hat? Because it looked like it was.
So. Was it? I don't know. I just thought that it was like floating in front of his eye. The
Monopoly guy. Yeah, cool. I almost interrupted you right in the middle of that. I think Jonah Marie saw me. I was like rearing up I've been in this fight since I was 6 years old. Anytime someone says Cassian, like I just can't. I can't wait. All right, so let's move on to episode 11, Devil's Deal. The director was Stuart Lee and the writer Tamara Becher Wilkinson. And I've got to say, just from the get-go, right now, this is battling for maybe my favorite episode of The Bad Batch, and it hardly had The Bad Batch in it. It was basically a Rebels prequel episode, and I'm okay with that because Rebels is one of my favorite Star Wars things, literally of all time. So, what are some things that stood out to you guys? Jonah Marie, we'll start with you. What did you, and just, give us your thoughts about the episode too.
Yeah. So it was great seeing Hera and Chopper because I love them. I love Rebels. It was great getting to know her mother, Eleni, and the fact that we have a name now for her was great too. But I think the thing that stood out to me is the fact that the Bad Batch were secondary characters in their own story in this episode. And I thought this second half of the season was going to explore more about Omega and Crosshair, but it feels like Omega and Crosshair are sitting in the backseat while other characters are being given the focus. And I definitely know that next week, the next episode is going to involve them. So I'll have a more informed opinion when Friday comes around. But for now, that's how I feel about this episode. Like, I love it. But I think the Bad Batch, especially Crosshair, should have been the main focus in this episode because all he did was follow orders. He didn't question. He didn't struggle with what he was doing. And maybe that's not the direction they want to go in for Crosshair. But I think this episode would have been more interesting if we had gotten more development on his part, or at least, him struggling with the ion blast that we saw in Battle Scars. Like, we didn't see any follow-up to that.
Yeah. That's a fantastic point. I almost feel like if this episode was in the first half of the season, wow. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's perfect because then it's like, but you're right. We are so close to getting towards the end. It was a little strange not to have the Bad Batch in it that much. Now they were, and I love the scene with Omega and Hera on the Havoc Marauder. I love that scene. But yeah, you're right. It was kind of strange not to have the Bad Batch in the episode hardly at all when the show is called The Bad Batch. Rik, what are some things that stood out to you and what were your thoughts on this episode?
They should have retitled this episode just, cameos in space, because everybody was a cameo in this thing, even the Bad Batch themselves. But I love this episode. And I mean, I've made it known before that the core Bad Batch members of Hunter, Wrecker, Tech, and Echo, they're not my favorite characters. I'm not getting a lot out of them. And the show was fine. I'm not saying I dislike the show in any regards.
You're saying you hate it.
I do. I hate everything about the show. It's stupid. It smells. The show's smelly. But since episode 2, Crosshair's been my focal point for the show because he's the one that we've seen struggle. He's the one that seems to have some kind of he's got he has some semblance of a moral compass in himself, but he has no control. We've talked about this. But having them not be in this episode for me, like when they came in, I was like, oh, what the hell are they doing here? I'm like, they don't need to be here. I'm like, who are those guys? But it was cool that they were there. I like the fact that they inadvertently become, almost like founding members of the Free Ryloth movement that we see in the Lords of the Sith book. And they're just like, well, Sid wants you can take this junk that Sid had laying around, like, see you later. Peace out. Good luck fighting your war. Good luck storming the castle. They're just like, they're in and they're out. But the show, again, just like the last episode, like thematically what this is, you're seeing the other side, people who were in line with the Republic also being subjugated by their rules. And to see kind of how Bragg and Rampart are working in tandem, but also in almost at odds with each other, where Rampart was like the tactician in this episode. He was wise enough to see with Orn Free Ta, like, no, let him go do his thing. You go. And then it's, with a little nod, Crosshair just blasts him in the side of the head.
But he's not dead.
Anybody who hasn't seen it. No, he's dead. No, he's dead.
He's not.
It was an attempt.
Rampart even says an attempt, and he's in Lords of the Sith, I think.
Yeah.
Which I need to reread after this episode.
Apparently I do too, because I don't remember him being in the book that much. It's been a while.
Okay, so it makes me think though, either he is actually dead and they've just like set up somebody else in his place to kind of, do whatever, or just they're pretending he's alive or he's in a coma or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Or it's been overwritten. Just like they have their own vision of what's going on. Yeah.
Which has happened already. So
yeah, they could be doing what they did with who was the king on Moncal?
Lichar.
Lichar. They had him kind of in stasis for a very long time.
Yeah.
It could be something like that, and they just had like a figurehead in his place. But yeah, they could rewrite it too. But yeah, this episode was really cool. Like it asks a lot of really interesting questions about what's happening with the people of Ryloth. The fact that none of them was down with Orn Free Ta to begin with. They were just like, shut up, give us, Cham.
Cham. We want Cham.
Yeah.
I mean, and I don't blame them. If I had a choice between Cham Syndulla and Orn Free Ta, I'm going with Cham every single time. There's no doubt.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, something I would have liked to have seen was the Bad Batch, after dropping the weapons, maybe have a conversation with Omega right after when they get into the ship and realize, hey, maybe they do need help. They're in trouble. Let's stick around and see if we can help. Because then that goes back to what the Martez sisters were telling them about how you have to choose a side. So it's like, I wish that the episode could have been a little bit better in bringing the Bad Batch in, because this isn't the Clone Wars, and they're not exploring other parts of the galaxy and not have it connect to the Bad Batch. It needs to come back to them. We need to see it from their perspective and how it's going to affect them. And so to not have them included felt a little bit off to me. And actually, I was checking the time on the episode, like 10 minutes. Where are they? Where are they?
See, I don't
know.
That
was like my thoughts on it.
I got so sucked into Hera's story for whatever. Like, I think number one, it shocked me that like, oh, there's Hera, and like seeing her mom too for the first time. Like, I don't know. I completely forgot about the Bad Batch. Like, until they showed up, like Rik, I was like, oh yeah, this is the Bad Batch. I will say, like, credit to this episode. This is the most interested I've ever been in the stuff going on Ryloth than I think I've ever been before. And partly because, and I say this every single episode, the way that they create the environments on this show, the lighting of this show, it just looks incredible. I mean, they deserve all sorts of awards for this show for how it looks. There is no denying that because it looks incredible.
I think that shot of them coming onto that moon and you can see the planet in the background and the stars. And I just thought that was beautifully done.
Yeah. Yeah. So, okay, what are some favorite parts that you had from this episode? Rik, we're going to start with you. What was your favorite part of this episode, Devil's Deal?
Hera staring off into the sky. Just her hand floating across the screen. It was like, for everything that we know of her story later on. And that's got one of the things that, Star Wars likes to start stories in the middle. And, we don't have an end for Hera, fortunately, but, knowing everything that she aligns herself with, puts herself in harm's way, everything that she does with Kanan later on, which, there's your other Rebels connection that we've had 3 of them. There you go.
Hey.
And, she's a dreamer. She's a kid. She wants to be off somewhere else, just, amongst the clouds, and to see that kind of longing for her, and almost, her being a little bit naive to the, not really knowing what Uncle Gobi is doing, but he's like, well, I was going to let you fly the ship. And she was all like, Chopper, cover for me, I'm out. And, Chopper's like, burr, 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 and then, they do their thing. But yeah, just her kind of head in the clouds was really endearing to see her kind of daydream like that.
Yeah, that was my favorite part too. Jonah Marie, what was your favorite part?
Yeah, so I really love the part with Omega and Hera, but I also love this particular moment between Hera and her father, where he's telling her that he doesn't want the kind of life that he's had for her. And I thought, well, she's gonna have it. Yeah. And not just the whole fighting part, but just the losing the people you love part, because just like how Cham is going to inevitably lose his wife, Eleni, she's going to lose Kanan in a similar way. So yeah.
do we know how Cham loses his wife? Do we know?
We don't. And I'm worried that that's what's going to happen in this next episode. And I'm doubly worried that it's going to be Crosshair who does it. Can you imagine? That would like nail the comment.
Oh, it'd be really hard to come
right
back
there
from that. Is that Crosshair?
Yeah, that's Crosshair.
Nice.
Yeah, he's back there.
Oh man, yeah, it would.
I'm sorry.
That would be rough.
You know what? I'm strangely like
you're into that.
Yeah, I am. I call me a sadist. I kind of don't. I mean, whatever. But I just. Because what does that do for Crosshair afterwards? Yeah, we know what Cham does. We know how that affects him. We see how much of his heart he puts into the fight after the fact. But what does this do to Crosshair? Since if you want to bring it back to a Bad Batch character, if it's not just him out there just like, hey, she's trouble, if he's given the explicit order, you need to make Cham hurt. This is how you do it. Strike against his family. What does that say for him when he's seeing maybe if his, if the rest of the Bad Batch get involved, which they probably will, and now his brothers are affected. What's the repercussions that he's going to end up facing on a personal level if he knows that they are somehow suffering too? Does he not care? Because to me, it seems like he's got a little bit of a heart left in him.
That's interesting. Yeah. The question I have, and maybe this makes me a fake Star Wars fan for not knowing the answer to this, and I'm glad I have two real Star Wars fans on this with me. Why does Ornfrey Ta have more Leku than everybody else?
I don't know the answer to that question. It could be just the variety. You know how we have the variety within our own species? It's a variety within theirs.
I thought maybe he was older than everybody else, right? Maybe you grow more. I don't know. Rick, I know you know the answer.
I'm just gonna make something up. So the male Twi'leks, they kind of have two bumps on the back of their head. What if when they're little?
Yeah.
What if when they're little, like they get cut off, and since Ornfrey Ta was from like an aristocratic family or something, they're allowed to grow theirs?
That's the answer.
I accept. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Nidra says he's a fancy boy, and I think that's exactly what it is. He's just fancy like that. I accept that answer as well.
That's my headcanon.
Yeah. Okay. So we're going to move into some chat questions because I think this is kind of a good time to transition from maybe questions that we have to questions that you guys have. And this is what makes the Bad Batch recap fun, in my opinion, is hearing what you guys think and the questions that you guys have. So we're going to start off with, is Hauser Axe Wove's dad?
Oh man, Hauser, yeah.
Yes. I'm a big Axe Woves guy too, and I think it's clear.
Hauser is somebody's daddy.
Rick. Oh, man.
Oh yeah, and then speaking of Hauser, the fact that he is behaving completely different to the other troopers. So there's something there, and hopefully he'll survive this next episode so that we can see more of him, because he is what Rex was talking about. There were a few that were able to resist the inhibitor chip, and I want to know more about him now.
I think he's going to help lead the clone rebellion when Omega is finally captured and taken to Kamino for the last time. The clones are all going to go, the good clones are all going to go try to save Omega, and the battle between the clones and stormtroopers will begin, and we will see Hauser in that battle.
Hauser's going to show up on Kamino, and all the regs are going to be like, "Who's that man? Let's follow him." And they're all just going to follow him out.
He's our leader now.
Come on, brothers, let's go. And they're going to be like, let's go. We out.
Yes. Yeah. Yes. I mean, it's clear. Hauser's the dude. All right. So we got a question from Danielle. Will we see another cameo in the Bad Batch? And if yes, who? I think yes, we will. Who? I don't know. Because I wasn't banking on Hera, actually,
I'm still thinking Dryden Voss will pop up at some point, just because his model existed in Star Wars The Clone Wars for like 2 seconds before he disappears. And I want to see that again.
That would be cool.
I think before the season is up, we get another Hondo appearance.
Oh, that would be amazing. I love Hondo so much.
I'm sure there'll probably be some others. I mean, we have 5 more episodes to go, but if I'm banking on anybody, probably Hondo.
Have you guys ever read the book Pirate's Price, like Hondo's book? It's like a middle grades book. Jonah Marie, you got to read it.
I know.
It is. Get the audio book, actually.
Yeah, the audio book, because it's read by what's his name? Cummings? Jim Cummings?
Oh, Jim Cummings? Oh, that's sweet.
He does the audio for it.
So and it's all in first person point of view, so it's like he is telling you a story.
Oh, that's awesome.
It is pretty awesome. So you should definitely get that. All right, next question. Yeah, it's a good one. Hey guys, since we both saw Hera and Kanan in the Bad Batch so far, oh yeah, Kanan, do you think we'll get to see them meet in the show? No, I don't. No. Sorry, Matt.
No.
I'm hoping we get that. No, wait, that's in Rebel Dawn, isn't it?
New Dawn.
New Dawn.
Yeah. And it's such a great moment, because he just hears her voice which connects back to when he's blind and all he's able to hear is her voice, which is the first thing that he heard of her. And, that's how he fell in love in that moment. Her voice.
New Dawn was a great book.
Yeah, it was great.
2015 was a great year for Star Wars.
Can you imagine if Hera's speaking voice was like Salacious Crumb, and that's what Kanan fell in love with?
Hey,
Salacious Crumb that he was right there.
That would be incredible.
Unhear it now.
I just ruined Star Wars. Sorry.
Oh man. Okay. It seems like Hauser's one of the clones Rex was alluding to in Battle Scars when mentioning clones not affected by their chips. Do you think he's going to survive to go to Rex or others? Yeah, I think so. I hope
so. Yeah. If not, the whole community is going to riot.
We
can't lose Hauser.
It begs the question, though. I mean, what happens to him? Because we only see Rex and
Gregor,
the other guys.
Wolf.
No, yeah,
Gregor and Wolf. Yeah.
So and we know that I'm blanking on names. That the other guy from episode 2 is still out there. Cut is still floating around with his family. So
if they're like Attack of the Clones, I was like, who are you?
No, I mean, like,
okay.
if somehow, like, if Rex right now is kind of globetrotting, finding all of these other clones who were either unaffected or found a way to fight the chip, and like recruiting them for this potential uprising to lead kind of the regs on Kamino. You hate to say it, and again, when I talked to Alex about this, it was like, you can't help but think that there's not going to be a lot of happy endings with this show because of where we know things are going to be and how far away this is from like kind of the actual birth of the rebellion. I mean, these are still very, very early days when it comes to fighting back against the Empire. So, you'd hate to think that the fate of, clones like Hauser and Cut, that they're not going to last too much longer. But that's just the reality of the situation. They're in the opening stages of a war, and if they're some of the first casualties that are involved, people have to go down, unfortunately. We know what happens. And
thanks for bringing us down, Rick.
I know I hate to be such a downer, but listen, Hondo's going to show up and
okay.
It's all
no, I think you're right though.
Unfortunately, I'm sorry, I'm right with with these sad feelings. So
yeah, I just cannot. Ever since we did the first one of these and we talked about the idea of a clone rebellion on Kamino, kind of like this is the clones' last gasp before they switch over to stormtroopers. I can't get that out of my head. Like, that doesn't mean it's going to happen, but it feels like it's going to happen because then they all kind of become the Bad Batch, right? Like they are all kind of doing what they're not supposed to be doing.
The real journey was becoming the Bad Batch all along.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. We'll do one last question and then we'll head out of here. And if you had to bet money, do you think Omega will be in the Book of Boba Fett?
I don't know if I mentioned this earlier, but Hera being in this episode as a young kid, and then we know what she's like as an adult. Omega is a young kid here, so it's possible that we could see Omega as an adult later on, like in the Book of Boba Fett. So that would be interesting.
If you had to bet money, though, Joan Marie.
Oh, if I had to bet money, like $5. Yeah, that's all I've got. That's all I've got.
Rick, what do you think? It just started raining really hard here. Sorry.
If I'm being honest, I don't want it to be.
Yeah.
I don't want her in the show. Only because, I want the focus of the story to be on Boba. If she's involved as a, you have this sister or there's this other, genetic clone of you, and that's part of the reason why there's a little bit of a heel turn for Boba. Like, I guess that's understandable. But again, because he does seem to have a little bit of a code with Din Djarin in in season 2. So it almost seems like he's softened a little bit. I don't want to say that, Boba's not soft by any stretch, but it's like something about his demeanor is a little bit different than we've seen in the original trilogy and stuff. So yeah, he got gooeyed up. He got softened up in the Sarlacc. So I could see that being a factor in his character development. Do I want to see somebody cast as Omega as an adult? No, I don't. Not for Book of Boba Fett. No.
Yeah. I would love to see her in live action one day. I agree with you. I don't know if I want to see her in the Book of Boba Fett, because honestly, she kind of steals the show then, right? Just like even if the character,
sort of like how Hera stole the show in this episode,
hey!
when it was supposed to be about the Bad Batch.
But they're not even in the episode. So, it would have been different if they were in 22 minutes of it and Hera shut up for a second. And now everybody only talked about Hera.
I'm kidding.
So when you put it like that, Jonah Marie, then it actually does kind of seem likely that Omega will show up in the Book of Boba Fett.
If it informs his story, yeah.
Yeah, I think so. I don't know. I think because she's so interesting, she could carry something by herself, I think. In the sense of if she makes it to that point in the timeline, I'd almost rather see something about her separate than the Book of Boba Fett. Maybe some mentions of her or allusions to her or something like that. I'm good with that. But I don't know if I want her to show up. But it would be cool. I mean, it could be cool. We could, I could be wrong about that, and it could be a totally awesome thing. But I guess we'll find out in 6 months.
We know what happened to her. After she parts ways with the Bad Batch, she goes to start a life on Parnassus. She has a whole deal there. She ends up with a big silver suit, and she starts training First Order troops, and she's Captain Phasma.
No, because Captain Phasma is not of...
I won't hear of it.
Rick.
Captain Phasma's a different woman.
She's not Captain Phasma. I know that.
I'm kidding.
She's her mother. Everybody knows that.
Oh man, that's funny.
Man.
Phasmega. Someone get it.
I got a little sweaty thinking of that one. Whew.
I did too. Okay, so this was a lot of fun. Jonah Marie, thank you for joining us. Rick, thank you for joining us. Now I got to say, it hurts to say this. I don't know if I'll be able to do one next week. I will be out of town. I've got to talk with Mac and see if he can lead one or not. He was out of town this week. It's the summer. It's really hard to podcast sometimes in the summer when you got that summer schedule going on. So if we don't meet again next week, you can be rest assured that the next week we will cover next week's episode and that episode. But we might. So just kind of follow us on Twitter at COTWatch and Instagram at COTWatch to kind of just keep up to date on the show and stuff. But just once again, guys, thank you for joining us. Jonah Marie, where can people find you and follow you?
Yeah. So listeners can find me on Twitter with the handle at BlueJaigEyes, and they can also listen to me and my mom talk about the Star Wars animated shows on the Geeky Bubble podcast.
Awesome. And Rick, what about you, buddy?
You guys can find me on Twitter at Cad Bane's Bounty. You can also find me occasionally recording shows on Jam Transmissions. We're still on a hiatus, but we decided to keep the date with Alex Damon. So the last episode is a special one. You can look for that on our website, jamtransmissions.com, or on your favorite podcatcher. And you can also find me here with my boy Alex breaking down the High Republic on the Patreon, where for $2 a month, you get all of this killer content and more of my crazy theorizing about whose mother is who in the High Republic and how we can trace that back to post.
Oh yeah, we're doing some ancestry.com stuff.
We
nice.
We get deep in the weeds of that stuff. So $2, come join us over there, guys. And moving on to the next one.
Awesome. Well, thank you again, guys. And as always, keep the